are and what we do, and why it might make sense for you to decide to be a part of what we're doing. So we have a very brief agenda this evening. We're not going to keep you too long. We're going to be very busy. I want to tell you, if you haven't already worked with our firm, I know some of you have with the oil and gas work that we've done in the area, but some of you haven't. Most of our work is focused a little further south from here. Tell you a little bit about our law firm. We want to introduce you to the law firm of Phipps, Anderson, Deacon. We want to talk a little bit about the Syngenta corn litigation and why it's time now to decide what action you're going to take. Our mission when we deal with landowners, whether it's for oil and gas, land use, or other agricultural issues, is to give folks enough information that they are in a position to make an educated decision as how to proceed to protect their land rights and their family. If you work the land, I mean, these are important decisions. How you decide to participate in the Syngenta corn litigation is going to be a very significant decision, and we think, we're confident that after you see who we are and what we do, you might decide to partner up with us. So a little bit about Morasic and Polachek, for those of you who don't know and haven't worked with us. We are a full-time landowner rights law firm. That's all we do. We represent landowners, a variety of different types of landowners, primarily in regards to their oil and gas rights, but also in a wide variety of land use and agricultural issues. We've worked with every type of landowner you can imagine, from organic farms to nudist colonies. Seriously, across the board. We've represented counties, we've represented school districts, we've represented any type of landowner you can think of in Pennsylvania. Over the past 5 years or so, we have helped about 200,000 acres worth of land get what we consider to be premium leases. We've worked with more than 10,000 landowners through the Appalachian Basin, which would include eastern Ohio, northern West Virginia, all throughout western PA and southern New York. And we've helped put into the pockets of our landowner clients more than $600 million. And we're very proud to have helped those landowners not only get the most money, but to get good protective leases where I know that those landowners that have worked with us, they know what are in those leases and they know what rights they've granted away, and we help put them in a position where they could make an educated decision. Is this the right piece of paper for me to sign? This might be here for 100 years, and this farm might be in the family for 100 years. I always tell landowners, an oil and gas lease, I can get you out of a bad marriage with a divorce, but I can't get you out of a bad oil and gas lease. That thing is going to be on your property long after you're alive, probably. So a very important document. What we're doing here in the corn litigation is very synonymous with our oil and gas work. If you farmed corn, you are going to be a participant in the corn litigation, one way or the other. And if you don't do anything, you're going to be a passive participant who ends up being part of a class action. And the one thing I do know is that folks that become plaintiffs in class actions, they never do as well as the folks who hire attorneys to represent them individually. And that's what we're here to talk about this evening. We've partnered up with Phipps, Anderson, Deacon. Martin Phipps is going to tell you a little bit about their firm and what they've done. We have lots of landowner clients throughout western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio, and they're going to have to make decisions on how to participate in the corn litigation. We are recommending to them that they work with us in Phipps Anderson. And so what we wanted to do this evening was introduce you to Martin Phipps and let him tell you a little bit about their firm and why now is the time to decide how you're going to participate in the Syngenta corn litigation.
All right. Thank y'all very much. You're going to hear this. I'm Martin Phipps, and I'm from Texas, and you're probably sitting there thinking, what the heck am I doing talking to this boy, right? So we talk a little differently, but my partner's from Arkansas. So if you think I talk strange, when you hear him talk, you ain't going to believe it, okay? I guess, are y'all getting mail about the Syngenta corn litigation? Okay. It's just letters from who? From people from Pennsylvania, or letters from lawyers anywhere, I guess? Have y'all had any meetings, lawyers coming through talking to y'all about it? Okay. All right. Well, let me tell you. Look, this girl's a small group. We can just talk. Okay. I know you don't know me from Adam. This is my partner, Barry Deacon, and my other partner, Austin Anderson. Okay. And yes, I wear boots because I need every inch of height I can get, so I look taller when I'm trying to meet women. That's the truth. Though my woman's in the back, I love them. I've been married a few times, guys, so you know I have an abrasive personality. I've been told by my ex-wives. Let me tell you what we do. how many of y'all have heard of the GMO rice case? Okay? What happened is that I got out of law school in 1994. I'm proud to tell you I have what's called a fourth tier education. I grew up in Breckenridge, Texas. We have about 2,000 people, and this is no story. My mom called and said something big was coming. We got a McDonald's, and so she said something big is coming. We got a prison, and my sister works at the prison, and my brother works at the mobile home plant right next to it. Okay, so I can't make this up. This is my life. So I went to Texas Tech at a small school, law school in San Antonio called St. Mary's. When I got out and I was dirt poor and had $62,000 in student loan debts, I got a job with the biggest firm in town representing big companies against people like you, okay? And I did that for 16 years and it paid well, but I wasn't really happy with my job. So on August 18th of 2006, I'm sitting in the office, I can't make this up. I never thought being from some small town would ever matter. You know, usually when you go to the big city, they don't, you know, and they ask you where you're from, the first thing they say is where, you know, where's that, where is it, or Breckenridge, Colorado, since Breckenridge sounds like that. So I told them we don't have any ski resorts there. We had a lot of hunting, you know, there's a lot of deer hunting, we didn't have any ski resorts. So what happened in the genetically modified rice case is that Bayer was genetically modifying a rice. So when rice farmers planted it, they would spray Liberty on it, just like Monsanto does with Roundup Ready products, okay? And it got out. And on August 18th of 2006, the USDA said, hey, this genetically modified rice is in the grain supply. It's not supposed to be there. They did it on a Friday after 5 p.m. On Monday, when the markets opened, Europe quit buying our rice. And even today, in 2016, 10 years later, Europe doesn't buy our rice. Well, and there were some farmers that I had grown up around called me, and they said, Martin, we have a problem. We've got some of that bad rice on top of our rice markets. So I went down and talked to them, and next thing I know, we started filing lawsuits for farmers in Texas. But all the long grain rice in the United States is in one state, it's in Arkansas. And as I used to say that, I've done these meetings, I always say, who would have thought that my family's actually from Arkansas? So next thing you know, I was in Arkansas, and we started signing up farmers. And I went to these meetings back then, I hadn't ever done, I never represented a farmer. I had never been a plaintiff's lawyer. I'd only been a defense lawyer, and I had tried lots of cases, hundreds of them, and done very well. And I said, hey guys, believe in me, and we're going to go beat this big company. And they all said, well, you know, that's when I learned about the power Monsanto has, and I learned about the power of agribusiness. And they're like, hey, we're not going to win. We're just a farmer. How the hell are we going to, Martin, we like you, you're a nice guy, and you know, you must have a lot of venom in you, because you're all excited about this, but we've never won. And one of the cases we talked about in rice was Starlink corn. Y'all, does anybody here remember Starlink corn? That was in 2000, okay? In 2000, it was the first genetically modified case. And Starlink is where there was a genetically modified corn that was approved for animal consumption that could be sold, but not for human consumption. And so Adventus was the company, and what did they say? Well, they said we can segregate. We'll segregate, they won't get mixed up, okay? I don't know how you do that with grain. How do you segregate that, as we all know? And it got out, and there was a class action, okay? And do you all know what a class, we've all been in a class action. Does anyone know really what it means, okay? Let me tell you why lawyers like class actions, okay? And I'll tell you why I hate class action lawyers. A class action lawyer is where he goes to a lawyer, and the lawyer goes in front of a judge, he says, you know what, this is my one client. Now, I don't have any other clients in Pennsylvania, or Ohio, or Kentucky, or anywhere else, but all the damages are the same. And if you convince the judge that, then I don't have to come to meetings like this and do the, you know, this is hard work, guys. This is the 33rd state we've been in the last 2 years, okay? So I tell people before the corn case, I was actually 6'5". Now look at me, this is what it's done to me already. We haven't even won, okay? But what happens is that the lawyer convinces the judge that everyone's damages are the same. In the Starlink case, it was a class action. And there's 90 million acres of corn, and this case sold for $120 million, okay? And I have been all over. I've probably met with 20, 30,000 farmers. I've met one that actually got $5,000. He was at the FSA office on the day the paperwork was due. He filled it out, and he got $5,000. He used it for Christmas presents, okay? But the lawyers got almost $30 million, okay? That's what a class does. The rice case started in 2006, okay? I actually tried the cases in the state courts in Arkansas, along with Austin. Barry Deacon was also in my trials. We tried these cases in towns. This is I would call this a city, okay? My first trial was in a town of Augusta, Arkansas. there was 1,500 people in the county, okay? My second trial was in a town called Arkansas City. It had 250 people. That's it. The courthouse was there. What happened is the Mississippi River used to flow there, but in the 1920s when it flooded, the river moved, but that's where the courthouse was. I mean, there wasn't even a convenience store, but there was rice growing up to the courthouse steps, right? So obviously this was not a good place for bear. But when we went to trial in the rice case, what we were asking for, the damages caused by what bear did. When the rice got contaminated, when bear's rice contaminated our rice, Europe stopped buying our rice. So you had a drop in the market price, okay? But as all of us know, I bet half of you, you sit there, you know, I've been to a lot of farmers in the shops, they've got the Chicago Board of Trade, constantly looking at updates, you know, to trying to make, you know, an extra nickel, a bushel, whatever it needs to make it. And so if we all knew what the market was going to do, we wouldn't, well, you definitely wouldn't be talking to some lawyer from Texas. That's probably true, okay? So what we did, or what I did in that case is I also did individual damage models, okay? And what's that mean is that, you know, I went every single one of my farmers, and I had thousands of them. We sat down with, and we said, okay, you know, when this happened to rice, did you change your crop rotation? Well, yeah, I was gonna have 1,000 acres of rice, but when, you know, Europe quit buying our rice, I changed to soybeans, okay? You know, and so we went through all that to get, and that's kind of like, if you're in an auto accident, somebody says we have whiplash and take an x-ray, they can't see it. But if you have an x-ray of a broken bone, that's something you can grasp hold of. So we had two areas of damage, okay? My first trial was in August, it was February 2010 when it started. I got the largest per acre verdict in the United States. I got the first punitive damage verdict in the United States in a county where a plaintiff had not won in almost 30 years, okay? And what I found out in small towns, and the reason that I grew up in a small town, obviously. I'm in San Antonio now, and that's a big city. But the reason I like small towns for these trials and these cases is because the juries understand farming, okay? You know, nobody who's in a farming community or knows a farmer really likes Monsanto. It's usually Monsanto is the name that they hear the most. I don't know, maybe some people like Monsanto, or big companies like this. They have a lot of control over all this, don't they? They tell you how much you're going to pay. Your tech fee, y'all get to bargain how much your technology fee is? Okay, right? Okay? And so I have taken on the tech fee. I lost that case, but by God, I'm going to win it. One day I'm going to win, okay? I just make money to keep fighting with big people. I mean, it took me a little guy, that's what you did. And so, those were the first trials. The rice case was the first time farmers, we won all the trials that were tried, okay? The case settled in, it was March 31st of 2011. Now remember, Starlink is corn, it's a class action. The rice case, the cases we tried were individual. Each person had their own case, and the clients we had, each person had their own individual damage model. It settled for $750 million. No farmer that I represented got less than $310 an acre. Generally, all my farmers got more money. In order to settle with me, because I'm such an asshole, to be absolutely honest with you, that individual damage model, my clients got $50 million more. So most of my farmers got $500 an acre. So, you know, when I handed out those checks to those farmers, I really did enjoy that. That was the best part of it. And people are like, Martin, man, you must have made a lot of money. I don't care. I mean, I hate to tell you this. I'm glad I won. It allows me to do this case, but it ain't about the money. I just love representing farmers, and that is all I do. And this is Barry, and he grew up on a farm, and Austin's from a small city. This is all we did for the last 10 years, okay? So the rice case gets done, and we're looking for other things to do. And what happened is that I use my experts, agricultural economist, right? It just so happens that my main one in rice is a corn farmer in Decatur, Alabama. He's a 5,000 acre corn farm. So in November 2013, he calls me and says China's rejecting shipments of corn. Now, is China a fair trading partner? No, right? I said, who cares? So they're breaking futures contracts because the price is going down. And why do we do it? And why do we let them do it? Because we got to sell it. And I said, I don't care, right? And then January, February of 2014, China said, we're not going to buy any more of U.S. corn. Now, why? Well, what happened was, and this is, you know, I don't know how y'all know about it, and as I'm talking, if you have a question, ask me. In 2010, for the 2011 crop year, Syngenta introduces Viterra, okay? Now remember, I'm in trial. Barry and Austin and I are in trial in 2010. getting punitive damage verdicts against Bayer, saying, you know, you shouldn't have done this, okay? Now, one difference between the rice case and the corn case is that in rice, the variety that got out, it was not approved for sale, okay? Here, the USDA said that tears are approved for sale. You can sell it. But all the trade organizations said you can't do it. Don't put it out there, right? And you'll hear, if your Syngenta rep comes around, even though they've been bought by China now, comes around and say, well, you know, those cases, that Syngenta corn case ain't no good. USDA approved it. It doesn't matter, okay? There's very little regulation on GMO companies. There's nothing that says you have to sell it. And so the companies make the law is, hey, we're gonna say, company, you do what a reasonably prudent company would do in the same or similar situation. You wanna know why that's the law? These laws were passed when Reagan was a president. We wanted less regulation, and we need to trust the companies to do the right thing, okay? And luckily, that's actually a good thing for all of us. So, what happened was, y'all heard of Bunge? Okay? When you go up and down the Mississippi, Bunge is got barges just flying up and down it. With our case of 2011, we're driving around Arkansas up and down the Mississippi River, down Mississippi, and Bunge puts big signs up in 2011 that says, we will not accept the pure corn. Okay, at the time, I didn't know what the heck was going on, and I had been, you know, I've been gone for, you know, years from home, and we were busy with the settlement. Well, what happened is Bunge had seen the corn case, I mean the rice case, and they said, we're not going to take the pure corn, because if it goes to China and they decide to reject our corn, we're going to get held responsible. So Syngenta sued Bunge to make them take the pure corn. Okay? So in 2011, I think it was 2011, the judge came out and said, guess what? Bunge's right. There is a risk to that, and they don't have to take it if they don't want to. Now, when you run a stop sign one time and get away with it, right? Cop doesn't see you. Well, the officer says, yeah, I'll give you a warning, right? And do you run it again? Sometimes we do, you know. But if you do it at your own risk. So Syngenta said, well, you know what? We're going to keep selling it. And so that's why this case is so good. Syngenta knew the risk was out there. Syngenta sued Bunge, was told by a judge there's a risk of losing this. You have the rice case that tells them not to do it, but they still sell it, okay? So you ask your question, well, why did China reject it? Because they could. When you're trading to get a best price, you're gonna take anything you can to get a better price, right? You're gonna negotiate with them to get anything you could. Why did they reject our corn? Was there anything wrong with it? No. They wanted to buy from Ukraine and South America. They had bumper crops. It was cheaper for them to buy it. They wanted to get out of it, so they did. Now, can you blame China for that?
I mean, they're a big player in the market.
Absolutely.
So I think their whole ploy was, hey, we'll reject this corn, we'll drive the price of corn down, then we can buy more corn on the cheap.
Well, I have over almost 20, maybe more than 20 agricultural comments, and one is from China. And what she said is that they wanted to buy from Ukraine because they had bumper crops and they could get it cheaper from them than us, and so they used it to screw us.
Excuse.
And that's what they did, which was what we would do if we given the opportunity, right?
No.
And so, that's just what happened. So for a year, we don't sell any corn at all. So in 2015, China lifts the ban on the pure corn. Have you seen how much corn we sell to them? Almost zero. Okay? And it's just like the rice case. What happened is when we lost Europe, our competitors get in there. Now, it's not to say Ukraine or South America won't have a bad year and we'll start getting back into it. But guys, here's the problem, okay? How much is corn today? Is it $4 yet? Okay, good. It's above $4. That ain't good prices though, okay? The problem with what we happened to y'all, and this is why this case is, I thought the rice case was the best case I've ever seen in my life, okay? The reason this case is better is that you guys have missed an opportunity at a market that is enormous, okay? If you look at the USDA projections in 2010, 2011, China was going to be our #1 export market. I can't remember if it was 20 billion tons or 20 billion bushels. I can't remember. It's huge. Why is that? We have sold a little bit of corn, and in 2008, we started selling a lot of corn. Why? Because China's starting to have a middle class. What does the middle class want to eat? Meat. Pork. Okay? They're landlocked. North China, there's only so much land. So their population is growing, the middle class is growing, and we've missed that opportunity to get in there. And my expert said, if we had China right now, you'd see it 50 cents per bushel, automatic. increase in the price of corn. I mean, that is a lot of money, because that's just 1 year, it's every year, okay? And so what happened is we didn't know how big the case was gonna get. I didn't know what was gonna happen, okay? And so Barry, Austin, and I, we believe that these cases need to be tried in small towns, okay? With, I hate to say conservative jurors, but I'm not really a plaintiff's lawyer, I'm really a defense lawyer with conservative jurors, because, when you do something wrong, they're the type of jurors that really will punish the companies, okay? And so we've been looking for a place where would we find a town, okay? In Arkansas, literally, there's just corn everywhere, okay? The number one rice, number one producing acre-wise of corn is Illinois. And so, in order to be in state court, and this gets a little complicated, the reason I was in state court in Arkansas is that I had an Arkansas farmer. If I sue a German company, I'm in federal court. Now, what does that mean? Federal courts are judges who are appointed for life. They're generally very conservative. You don't hear about big verdicts in those towns, okay? And then you go to courts of appeals that are even more conservative, okay? They protect big business. So as a general rule, no one wants to be, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer and you're smart, you don't want to be in federal court. But I wanted to be in state court because the same reason that we've learned from our trials, the jurors understand. I don't have to go in and talk about when planting starts, when harvest starts, how, all this stuff. They understand, okay? In the Rice case, one of the things that Bear did is they took I didn't produce a single tax return. I did have to produce a Schedule K. And my first trial was a 300-acre farmer. That was it. The reason I put a 300-acre farmer in there is I wanted someone small, because he's not the halves. He was a third-generation farmer. He had a good reputation in town as being fair, being honest, okay? But what they did is they took his gross sales, which was like $500-something to show it. That's all they did. They went up on a big board, put 500,000 and 2008. Then it went up every year. He must be rich. Well, I had his banking records. So he actually lost money, and the bank allowed him to make $35,000 on a loan. So I was ready for it. But that's what the defense is that they say, oh, well, look, you're a farmer. You get subsidy payments. I spend most of my time traveling, talking to people about the bullshit of subsidies. I go, really? Do you think farmers are rich on subsidies? I say, take a circle and then draw a line with a pencil. That line is thicker than the amount of money farmers get on these social programs. Okay, I said, by the way, it's all crop insurance now, so we ain't getting rich by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, and if any of y'all had Ark County, you didn't get shit if you had a county that didn't get the number of surveys back. That's a whole other case. That's another discussion some other time. But the deal is here is that we want to be somewhere where the people know farming. Okay, and there's only certain states you can do that. In Arkansas, Barry represented Riceland, the world's largest rice mill. So Barry didn't know me at all, and if you know anything about the South, Texas and Arkansas, we hate each other just because we hate everybody, right? So I went to Barry, I said, Barry, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sue you, an Arkansas company and a German company, to be in state court. Because an Arkansas farmer versus an Arkansas company, you stay in state court. I said, but trust me, I'm not coming after you to point the finger. I'm asking you to help me. And our last trial will be in Stuttgart, Arkansas, which just happens to be where Riceland's home office is. And we were able to stay in state court, and the juries just freaking hated Bear. In fact, one of the Bear lawyers said that state court in Arkansas was inhospitable to them, okay? And in the last case that was tried, Barry tried his case against Bear and got a $137 million verdict from a small town jury where two of the jurors rode a bike and they didn't have a car, okay? So these are the areas, so we like these types of venues. The problem is you can only do it in certain states, okay? Illinois is one of them, and so there's a town called Marion, Illinois. It's in southern Illinois. There's 107,000 acres of cropland in the county, 100,000 acres is corn. And we're lead counsel for the state of Illinois and all the farmers there, okay? Right now what we're doing is there's gonna be another, there's only certain states you can do this in, there's gonna be one in New York, in Rochester. And we're gonna be appointing lead counsel there, okay? I wish there was one in Pennsylvania, but unfortunately we don't have the way to get into state court. But what we do is we go to these, you don't need everybody to do it, okay? We represent about 12 or 13,000 farmers, okay? We also represent almost the entire ethanol industry. I can't remember how many ethanol plants we have. It's over 60, 65. We'll probably represent, I think there's 130 in the country. We'll probably represent almost all of them, if not all of them, for the DDGs that went down for 1 year, okay? And so what we're doing is we're suing Syngenta. Why? And the question is this: if you're Syngenta, Why did you sell a seed that was not approved by a major market? If anybody can tell me, the question to Syngenta is, why did you do that? Were you all gonna go out of farming if you didn't have the term? Okay? I'll tell you the reason, the patent. The patent was right, you've only got so many years on the patent. I think that the Viptera product is a good product, but they needed to get it out. Second, I went up, when this first started, we went and talked to the National Corn Growers Association just to see, hey, you know, what's going on, tell us about the people. And I was very interested. They said, you know, Martin, they sat there with us, and this was just the officers and stuff, and they said, you know, you would think that maybe Monsanto's hard to deal with, or DuPont, you know, but they said, actually, the most difficult company was Syngenta. That they just didn't give a crap about the United States farmers, and they didn't really care, okay? There's been an article that's come out that basically said the people who managed Syngenta, they really didn't think about it. They wanted to sell their product and get it out there, so that's what they did, okay? So we're suing, that's one part of the reason we're suing them for. And also, it's the loss of the Chinese market. Does anyone here know when you all are gonna start selling to China? Would you like your price to be 50 cents more a bushel? Right now, okay? And by the way, guys, these aren't experts, they're all university experts, okay? I do have one from, I can't remember, Penn State, here, but most of them from, I got Texas A&M, there's a big department there that predicts prices, have that one, we have all over, we've already done the damage model for the past 3 years. It's $1.52 combined for 13, 14, and 15, okay? Every year that goes by, it becomes a past damage, okay? And so right now, it's $1.52 in the past, combined, and then it's 50 cents a year in the future. And that's a lot of money, right? And so you probably noticed, I don't know, that Syngenta got sold to China. You might think, well, why did they do that? Well, you know, that's a good question. We're trying to find out the answer to that. So what we're doing is, you know, we're here to talk to y'all because I don't think, you all may have gotten a lot of letters, but I don't think anything else is coming around here. When we met these guys, and look, I like them a lot. I mean, when they put me up in the van from the airport, you know, big van with a bunch of sounds like, hell, I'm home, you know, give me a beer here, let's hit it, okay? But here's what's going on, okay? Because there's so much corn, there's gonna be a class action. And if you don't do something, you're gonna be part of the class. The class action's getting filed this summer, at the end, like end of July, beginning of August. They're gonna file a motion and say, this needs to be a class action. My guess, that a nickel a bushel is probably something that's gonna happen. Okay? Now, why is that? There's just too many damn corn farmers. I mean, in Arkansas, I spent 5 years literally walking from farm to farm, and we signed up about 33%, 34% of all the farmers. That took 5 years, okay? As you all know, there's in every nook and cranny, almost every state, there is a corn farmer, okay? So what happens, it's a way to end it. For the farmers who get a lawyer, okay, you know, I've given you true examples of what Starlink did and what we did. But there's going to be a big difference. If you said, Martin, what is this case going to settle for you? I don't know what it's going to do to everybody else's clients. I tell you it's going to for ours. I cannot imagine it's selling for less than $1 a bushel on the market side for us. Okay? Because you only get one bite at this. I don't know in China if ever is going to buy back. That's one damage model. Then the individual damage model, it depends on how you change your operation. You know? And what's good about that is by the time this settles, which probably into 2017, when, you know, something like that, when the trials start to happen. But when we come back and sit down and talk to you, like, okay, we have all your past farming records, okay, and we know the prices you would have gotten one way or another. And so we're able to look at that, and let me tell you, those nickels and pennies add up. I mean, most farmers in rice got between $50,000 to $150,000 more on top of the market loss. But we had some people that got just substantially more, okay? And so it's just something they can't fight with, you know? So I think that, you know, between $200 and $300 an acre I'd be very likely in this case, okay? It just takes a long time. Cases like this take a very, very, very long time, all right? I've been talking, you guys have got to ask me a question because I'm losing my voice because there's no humidity up here. I'm like, just like dry. Yes, sir?
Where would this case be heard at?
I think y'all's cases will be heard. Okay, to explain MDL, what that means, and I didn't understand what that means, because those letters don't add up in the ABCs, is multi-district litigation. So what they do is they combine, you file cases in the counties, they all goes to one. In Pennsylvania, we can't file your case here. There's no defendant. but we can put it in New York and Rochester, okay? Okay, how do I explain?